welcome to Hanging by a Thread. My name is Ailsa and this is a channel where I talk about all things knitting to keep you company as you are crafting. It is somewhat starting to warm up in Toronto. We're having really up and down spring weather where some days it's beautifully warm with just like a little hint of crispness that you want from spring, and then some days it's like back to like 5 degrees. So we're having a little bit of a variable spring here, but I am dreaming of warmer weather and thinking about knits that are perfect for spring into summer. So today I'm coming to you with a pattern roundup inspired by what to me feels like one of the biggest trends in knitting right now, which is Pointelle knits. It just seems as though every week a new Pointelle design is being released, or calls for testing are going out. Like, there just seems to be real energy behind Pointelle at the moment, and I'm in love with this trend. It so speaks to me. So today I'm going to be sharing with you 10 of my favorite Pointelle inspired patterns, and that you could cast on now to wear into the summer. Maybe you could get some of these done really quickly and have them while we still have some springtime left. And certainly ready for next spring. And so I hope there will be something that will inspire you in this collection. As always, everything I mention in today's video will be shared down below. I've put together a bundle on Ravelry of my Pointelle inspirations. There's actually all of these designs in that bundle, as well as many others. So if you are also really drawn to the Pointelle trend, but you're not entirely sure that the ones I've selected here are the right ones, check out that bundle because there's even more inspiration in there. Before we jump into the patterns, however, I did want to talk a little bit about what is Pointelle exactly, because I don't know if anyone else has this, but sometimes when things are talked about in the knitting community, I'm like, I kind of know what that means, but I'm not 100% certain. And that's a little bit how I felt about Pointelle. I was like, I kind of know it when I see it, but I'm not sure exactly what it's referring to. So I did some digging, and I will share again in the notes below my reference for this, where I learned about this. You can distinguish Pointelle from kind of other lace patterns and more kind of like mesh fabrics. Pointelle is a specific type of fabric. You often get it kind of in machine-made fabrics. Like, for example, I know that I just recently bought some socks for my kid that are like machine-made cotton, that have kind of a Pointelle fabric that's made with geometric regular shapes with little eyelets. So it's geometric patterns, it's regularity, and it's made with the eyelets. In knitting, those eyelets are typically obviously made using yarn overs and decreases, either a slip knit or a knit two together, depending on what direction you want your knitting to be, or your shaping to go. So in comparison to, like, you know, more traditional lace work, often in more traditional lace work we see kind of more organic forms. Like, I'm thinking about the feather and fan, or like shells, or, you know, kind of waves, and we tend to see more elaborate designs, whereas Pointelle tends to have a more clean aesthetic, a more repetitive aesthetic, and at the same time, compared to mesh, it has it's denser. Mesh is kind of bigger gaps in your knitting, and that kind of, it has the regularity and the geometric shape, but it's a bigger, more open fabric that lends itself to a kind of more sporty look. I do have an image that I'm going to share from my reference to kind of show the differences between these types of knitting or fabric up on the screen here somewhere, so we can kind of all be on the same page about what we're talking about. Fun fact, the name Pointelle comes from the French term point d'esprit, which translates as spirit point or distinct points of detail. So that's kind of referring to the precision, the geometric nature of the design. So it's not the kind of chaotic, organic structure of traditional lace. It is very much this kind of geometric, organized principle around the design. I liked this description of what Pointelle is because it made me kind of think a little bit more broadly about Pointelle, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. Because one thing that I think it's often become synonymous with is actually still quite a floral motif. You often see it as like almost like a little clover shape. Again, I'll put a picture here, and that's what we associate as being Pointelle. But it can also be much more abstract or in different shapes. So I think you can play with Pointelle and you can kind of lean into it being more kind of floral and delicate seeming, or you can go into more abstract and geometric. I think one of the things I really like about Pointelle inspired knits is that you get kind of like that blend between something being delicate but functional. You get a fabric that's going to be breathable because it does have these eyelets. It's just really great for those kind of spring and summer knits because of the characteristics of how you make the fabric. Okay, we're done our dive into what Pointelle is. Now let's look at some patterns that you could get on your needles this spring. First up, we have the Margot Blouse by Fable Knitwear. This pattern was just released in April, and it really does feel like this idyllic summer top. I think Fable Knitwear is kind of known for her romantic vintage inspired designs, and this top is no different. It has to me a very like maybe like 1930s, 1940s kind of feel to it. It's a structured, short-sleeved cardigan, or yeah, cardigan I would say, and with the Pointelle motif all over the body and sleeves, and then with these delicate ruffly sleeves and collar. Really very feminine, very romantic, has like a very distinct look. It is worked top down, so for those of you who love your top down knits, this one will fit the bill. It is made, or the sample, she talks about the fact that it was made in fingering weight wool. And because I guess like the ruffles do well with the structure of wool. She mentions that some of her testers did use cotton to get a more summer-friendly fabric, but then found that they needed to use elastic in order to achieve the same look. If I were going to knit this, I'd be really curious about trying to use Sandnes Garn Tin Lena, which is one of my favorite summer yarns, to get like that really light, breathable fabric, and how that would hold up with this top that does need that structure. But yeah, I think this is just such a beautiful design, and I can imagine it really lifting an outfit. I can imagine it being worn with with like a long kind of maxi skirt over the top of a sundress, just adding, as I said, that kind of like romance, that that kind of dreaminess to a summer outfit. It really is very beautiful. This pattern is fully size inclusive. It goes up to a 68-inch bust. I will note that there's only 6 projects on Ravelry. This is a brand new pattern, as we've mentioned, so you can't see it knit up a lot of times and see it across tons of different body types, but it may be something that you want to be an early pioneer on and have your own version of this top. Okay, next up we have the Marielle Scarf by Maria Mogenstad, which was released last summer. I'm including this scarf / shawl pattern. It's one of these patterns that you can you can get a scarf, you can get a shawl, you can get a kerchief. Like it's I mean, as often with lots of kind of shawl patterns, you can make it as big as you want. I'm including this because the Marielle patterns, there are a family of patterns and they have been wildly popular. I've been seeing them everywhere on Instagram, but unfortunately the garments are not fully size inclusive. So I included this bandana scarf shawl pattern to give a nod to this very popular pattern. But if you're somebody who prefers to shop exclusively from designers who are size inclusive across their patterns, this may not be the one for you. But this pattern does have options for a bandana, a scarf, and 2 shawl sizes, which does offer you a lot of versatility within one pattern. And it has what I think of as that classic pointelle, the kind of 4-leaf clover, repeating across the body of the scarf. Very lovely, could work in a range of different colors, lovely to add to a summer outfit, just very, very pretty. The designer does suggest knitting this with a strand of Knitting for Olive pure silk alongside the mohair to get a DK weight. But I do think it would be possible to knit this in more spring summer friendly yarns. I think you could absolutely make it in a single strand of DK. You could probably just do 2 strands of Knitting for Olive pure silk to get like that really drapey, summery kind of shawl. Obviously, the fabric composition will change a bit if you do it just in silk. That's going to be a lot drapier than having kind of the structure and the what have you of the mohair. But I think you could play around with this one. I think with a shawl as opposed to a garment, you can be a lot more playful in trying out different yarn compositions to get the effect that you want. The next pattern I have to share with you is the Dain Tee by Celine Phaeton. First up, I love the play on words, the Dain Tee, just this lovely Dain Tee t-shirt pattern. I do love a good pun, so I really appreciate that. And to me, this t-shirt feels like a modern take on a pointelle. I think this top manages to combine some really beautiful, delicate details along with a feeling of clean minimalism. So if you're not somebody who loves wearing an all-over patterned top, doesn't really see yourself wearing full all-over lace, want something with a bit more coverage maybe, this might be the top for you. So the pointelle motif on this pattern is limited to the sleeves. So you've got like a very clean, standard kind of stockinette body and then the pointelle on the sleeve. So it's a little bit less in your face, a little bit more understated. And then you get these beautiful details like the folded over hems at the neckline that make the piece look really polished. It is designed with Knitting for Olive cotton merinos, which will make it a very lightweight and wearable piece. And it is a fully size inclusive garment going up to a bust size or a finished bust size of 68 inches. This top is knit from the top down. She mentions in the construction notes that it's knit like a raglan but fits more like a satin sleeve. I'm not entirely sure what she means by that, but I'm intrigued. It sounds like it might be quite an interesting construction and that maybe gets a slightly different fit. It is intended to be kind of a looser area fit. Again, great for warm days. Yeah, I think this one is just a really beautiful option for if you're somebody who wants to get in on the pointelle trend but doesn't want to do the all over pointelle look. This one allows you to add that little bit of whimsy in at the sleeve without completely going fully into it. Another way to add some spring whimsy into your outfit is with your socks. And for this, I am sharing the Pointelle Socks by In Her Skein, Marie Eve Wedge. I've actually cast these on. I haven't got very far at all. I've kind of done the scalloped cuff on one sock, but I do have these ready to go. And these are a beautiful, very, again, I keep coming back to this word romantic, but kind of romantic pointelle design. You've got a slightly different pointelle look, which looks to me more like arrows, or maybe like a different kind of flower. I don't know. I don't know how you would describe it, but it has like a different, it's not the clover. And then with these like longer eyelet rose kind of borders. Very, very beautiful. I think these socks are the perfect way to add some summer whimsy to your outfit. I think these would look really adorable paired with a pair of Birkenstocks or some Mary Janes, having that scalloped cuff peeking out over your shoes. I don't know, it just has like a very vintage and delightful feel to me. The socks are available in 4 sizes, and there is a very helpful video tutorial for working the cuff. I hadn't done a scalloped edge like this before, and it was very helpful to have that video just talking you through it. So yeah, haven't finished these yet, but so far I can recommend the pattern for being very, very easy to follow. Next up, we have the Mabel Meadow cardigan and vest from Famke of Mippy the Label. This came out last autumn in September, and I remember seeing a few podcasters here on YouTube being part of the test knit group for this cardigan, and I just became obsessed with it. I remember knitting with Ev made it, and Marlene. Is it Marlene Knits is her channel? Anyway, I saw various people making it last year and just became completely obsessed with it. This is definitely on my would love to knit list. It is really such a beautiful pattern. I can't even decide whether I would want the vest or the cardigan. Both are so gorgeous. So yeah, perfect that it does actually come with those options though, that you could have either the cardigan or the vest. So I love to see when patterns are when it's kind of like a multiple in a pattern, that you're not having to buy a vest pattern and a cardigan pattern. I really appreciate when designers do that. It does have a bit of a different vibe to some of the other pieces here because it does combine pointelle and cables. I think it has like a really lovely vintage vibe. It does include a tie that kind of cinches in the waist. I don't think if I were going to make this, and if I do make this, again, it is pretty high on my to knit list. I don't think I would do that cinch and tie. It's just not a look that I think works for me. And I have seen examples of this without the tie that feel more my style, but I do think it's a very adorable style on other people. And so if that's something you're drawn to, great. But I think it can be omitted if you're not into that style. It is designed to be knitted with drops Nord held with brushed alpaca silk for approximately a worsted to Aran gauge. So maybe a bit more appropriate as an early spring layering piece or transitional into the autumn piece. So yeah, I think depending on your climate, it could still be a great addition to your wardrobe. Here in Toronto, as I was saying, spring can be very, very variable. We get snow in April, sometimes even in May. So it could be a really great transitional piece, even at that heavier gauge. I've also seen when I was going through the projects on Ravelry, some folks have knit this in wool cotton blends, and some people have knit it at a lighter weight yarn successfully. So there are options there if you want to make this more of a warm weather friendly piece. I think it would also be really fun to play around with the colors you choose for this, because if you do go through the project page on Ravelry, it looks very different depending on the color that you've used. Like it can look much more spring-like in lighter colors, in pastels, and then much more autumnal in some of those rusty colors or greens. So yeah, definitely something that you could play with to get a different vibe depending on when you see yourself wearing this. Now, Femke may be the queen of Pointelle inspired knits for me because I have a second pattern from her on this roundup, which is the Fiona flower sweater. This one was released in January of 2025, and it has some similarities to the Mabel Meadow cardigan, but I think it's different enough that it's worth talking about as well here. So it uses the same recommended yarn combination, and it does have the similar elements of combining cables with a pointelle motif. But this version is a pullover with a Henley style neck, and because it doesn't use the pointelle and cables all over, it has quite a different look. So it has a stockinette panel in the front, and then it has that kind of Henley neckline. And to me, whereas the Mabel Meadow looks very romantic, vintage, you know, it has that kind of very, very feminine vibe. This one, like, even though it still does have that kind of like feminine delicacy, it still has a lot of that charm. It also like almost has a sporty vibe because of the Henley. I just find this combination of different styles meeting together really interesting. This is another one that I would absolutely knit. I'm really quite taken with it because it just feels like a really perfect blending of different style ideas or different aesthetics to make something that feels surprising yet also very wearable. So yeah, another really great option from Mippy the Label for those of you who love the kind of heavier weight, maybe who have the spring into autumn transitional seasons. Might be one to cast on now to have at the end of the summer. Yeah, I definitely think this one is a real winner as well. If you are looking for something to cast on now that will be summer appropriate, but that you can get done really quickly, may I suggest the Fleurie top by Friday Knits. This is a tank top design knit at an Aran weight in Aran weight cotton. The suggested yarn is shiny happy cotton, or We Are Knitters the cotton. So you're knitting a denser fabric, but in well, not a denser fabric, a heavier yarn, but in a summer friendly fiber. I love this like button up style of vest. This is like just, I love this look. Very kind of casual summer vibes, very relaxed feeling. It has that kind of easily identifiable 4-leaf clover kind of pattern, but just looks so beautiful. It also has a lace detail at the hem, and it does include in the pattern a tie, much like the Mabel Meadow cardigan. Again, that wouldn't be for me, but easy enough to omit if it's also not for you. Yeah, I just think this is like such a fun, pretty top. Again, could be styled with your summer skirts, over summer dresses, with cut off shorts. Like there's lots of options here. You could dress it up or down. I really do think it has a lot of versatility. If I was going to knit this, I think I might look at the Sanders Garn Lena, which is the heavier weight version of the Tin Lena I was talking about before. It is, again, one of my favorite summer yarns. Or even I do have in stash some Lion Brand cotton, which like I'm quite tempted to make this shirt in that. I have it in kind of like a peacock blue color. That might be a really interesting idea. We'll see if I have time to get to it this summer, but again, it's worsted Aran weight and it's a tank top. So, you know, it might be doable. This one is a bottom up construction, which I know not everyone is a fan of, but maybe worth it for the beautiful result that you get here. And the pattern is fully size inclusive. An alternative summer vest in a lighter weight fabric, we have the Petite Pointelle tank from Jessie Made Designs. Again, very recent release, just released this April. This one's knit up in a sport weight yarn. The suggested yarn is Wandering. This one is a tank top style design, has that combination of the four-leaf clover and kind of a border of lace running around it, a very classic sort of look. The sizing goes up to a 66-inch bust, and I believe this is one that's intended to be knit with negative ease. Oh no, it's 1 to 4 inches of ease at the full chest. And okay, so she makes a note here, this feels important. Note that there are 6 sizes for the upper yoke for this pattern, but 12 options for final body circumference. For example, both sizes 37.5 and 39 would work yoke size 2, 42 and 45.5 would work yoke size 3, and so on according to the above measurements. So although it looks like there's a limited number of sizes, there's actually greater customization available within the pattern. And the reputation that Jessie Made has for doing size inclusive designing and grading leads me to believe, I don't own this pattern, that this will be a pattern that will work well on a range of body types. This one is also worked in a top-down construction, so again, if that's your preference, you may prefer this over the Fleurie top that I just showed you. So really has something lovely to offer. I don't know, I kind of want to make this one, but it might be a little bit too similar in style to the Ravenna top that I'm currently test knitting. Not completely. The Ravenna top is it's not using eyelets for the kind of clover motif. It's in fact using Estonian buttons, which are all the kind of bobbles, but it does have lace in it as well. So it is different in that way. And I'm also making the button version, so it would be different to this in terms of this being a tank top. But the Ravenna top, or the Ravenna sleeveless, is also going to have an option for doing it as a tank. So if I wanted a tank top, I could just make another Ravenna. Yeah, so I probably won't be purchasing this pattern, unfortunately, because it is very beautiful, but I have another option that I can use to make something very similar. But I think this is really beautiful, and again, I think Jessie Made is well established as a designer and puts out really beautiful pieces, and this could be a really great one to add to your wardrobe this summer. Next up, we have something a little different, the Bloomlet Poncho by Milotte by Vic. So as the name suggests, this is a poncho pattern, and it's designed to be knit in either Sanders Garn Lena or Garn Studio or Drop Spell. So knit at a worsted weight, but in summer-friendly fabrics. This is a really lovely summery feeling pattern that I think could work well as a beach cover-up or as a summer shawl type garment. Like maybe if you're wearing a tank top and then into the evening your shoulders are getting a little cold, you could just throw this on. You could obviously, at a worsted weight, probably knit this up fairly quickly. I did go to the pattern page and I didn't really understand the sizing, to be honest with you, and without purchasing it, I'm not entirely clear on how the sizing works. But given this is a poncho and the kind of more open nature of a poncho, there's maybe more flexibility for adjusting. I'm not entirely sure. I do try to make sure when I share garments in these videos that they are size inclusive. And you will see that in my Ravelry bundle, when I've favorited or put things in there that I've later realized are not fully size inclusive, I've tried to make a note of that because I don't want anyone to, fall in love with a piece and then realize it's not size inclusive. So this one, I'm a little bit I'm not certain how the sizing works on this one, but I think there possibly is more option for customization on a poncho. Again, I've not actually ever made a poncho, so I'm not certain about that, but to me it feels more like a shawl where you can kind of adjust more easily, but I don't know for sure. Maybe some of you are more familiar with this construction and can educate me in the comments. Okay, and my final recommendation, which is something I am wearing right now and is a little bit different, is the Florencia Tee from Unit Toronto. This is a fingering weight garment. It is fully size inclusive. I knit this in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. And this is one, again, that is worked from the bottom up, so be aware of that if that is something that you're just not willing to get into, but I did it. It wasn't that bad, I promise. What makes this one different and why I wanted to include it is how the eyelets are arranged. So remember that when we were talking at the beginning about what defines Pointelle, we said it's this geometric, regular organization of eyelets, and that has come to be seen as often this kind of standard clover motif, but it doesn't have to be. In the Pointelle socks that I shared, that's not the motif that's used. And in this one, I think this is arguably Pointelle. It's a very regular geometric design with the kind of lines of triangle motifs across the body, plain sleeves, which I think breaks up the pattern nicely. And yeah, I really enjoy this design. It is kind of like a more modern take on this look. I find this to, you know, it still has the vibe of being a lacy top, but with a slightly more modern twist. I really, really enjoy it. I knit my version in 2023. There was a knit along in that summer, and I participated in that knit along at that time. Mine is like a little bit worse for wear. One, I think there are some things that if I were knitting it now, I would do differently. I'm a more competent knitter now, or especially a more competent garment knitter. And also, unfortunately, I did put this in the washing machine, and I think I have had a little bit of shrinkage. But I would potentially make another one of these. It didn't take me as long as I thought it might. It was a really addictive pattern in terms of like moving through the motif. As I have said many times on this channel, I am somebody who loves doing lace, so I would be tempted to make this again. But yeah, I highly recommend this design, this garment. Again, there are changes I would make, and I'm happy to talk those through at some point if anyone's interested. But yeah, something a little bit different and something maybe you wouldn't have considered as traditionally Pointelle, but that I think could fit the bill. You know, you can disagree with me if you like, but I wanted to offer this up as a possibility. So I hope that I have given you some inspiration today for possible cast-ons for your spring or summer knitting plans. I would love to know, do you have a favorite Pointelle pattern? Is this a trend that you are interested in? Is it something you're going to be skipping altogether? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing to this channel is the best way you can help me to grow and continue making videos here on YouTube. And I truly appreciate each and every one of you who has chosen to subscribe and hang out here with me. All right, that's everything for now. So until next time, happy knitting, and I will see you soon.